Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know who of you who are watching right now actually have kids, and it's a weird question to start a video with a kind of dramatic title. I get it, but I'm asking that for the simple reason that if you have kids, it's wonderful. I know, I have two. If you don't have kids, and you plan to have kids, it will be wonderful. It's a huge transition in your life, and I'm not going to turn this video into a psychological assistance for education because you'll have to figure that out yourself. And if you don't have kids, never want to have kids, that's fine as well. Why am I saying that? Because I have two daughters, one of which is already now partly out of my house. I cannot say that and she won't like that, but the fact that she lives near the university where she studies psychology first year. She actually passed all her exams. That deserves an applause also from you, and leave it in the comment box too. And I will show these comments to her because she deserves all the praise. If we would be focused, if I would be able to focus just 2 weeks as she did to prepare all of her exams, which is basically study the entire year, well, we would finish the book probably in 2 weeks. Anyways, I'm saying that because the other day I was in her room that she has, and she wanted to have some carpet. So as a good father, I went there and I cut in my finger. Of course I did. That's why I'm wearing this. How do you say that in English? The word escapes me. Anyways, it doesn't hurt. It's all fine. And, before you say yeah, Wim, you're a musician, you make YouTube videos and do some research. Some of you will say fake research. I can live with that. No worries. But you have two left hands as all pianists. Well, that's not entirely true. Many of you, or some of you, I don't know if many of you, depending on how long you are in this channel, actually will remember that I actually built part of my own house, which was necessary because there was no way that we could afford the large house where the pianos are actually have rebuilt that by a contractor. So over the years, I learned a lot. Even last year, I built an entire IKEA kitchen in my house, making my wife Anya very happy. That's also necessary in life. So I cut my finger, and I'm saying that because this is a nice transition in what this video is about. The topic of today, we are going to talk about this person here, this wonderful woman, Barbara Lister-Sink. And if you want to know a little bit more on her, she has even a Wikipedia page. She talks about injuries in piano playing, and that indeed is much, much worse than just having a cut in your thumb that is actually clean cut, and in a few days everything will be forgotten. She talks about injuries in piano and education, pianists, like playing piano, the piano world. And I can guarantee you what she's saying about piano playing is also applicable to other instruments. So a few years back, I think it's 3 or 4 years back, I already touched upon that video, but I want to add some points to that. There were some elements that only now I start to understand better. And you know that recently I made some videos, and also already in the past, about pianistic injuries and the over practicing, the way that actually the whole system is set up, that in the name of the composer, we have to practice 50,000 hours a day in order to achieve something that is not, in many cases, not even remotely close to what we believe today is in the name of the composer. Meaning, of course, the metronomizations of those works, the metronome marks left by Schumann, Chopin, Beethoven, Czerny, whoever plays music of Czerny, it's actually worth playing. But anyways, you get my point. So we over practice. If you want to be part of this classical music world, you have to accept that one day or another, the graphs, some statistics that we will see is unbelievable. And the reason why I make a video on this again, and I will make more videos about this, is because the elephant in the room is never mentioned, even not in the case of Barbara Lister, who actually won some prizes with the work she's doing, or she did. But the elephant in the room is not addressed by her. The elephant in the room is, of course, these insane tempi. The fact that we read these metronome marks of the past in what I would say is the wrong way. We read them in the modern way, which is just we take one tick, one click per note value in the metronome mark, whereas in the old days, and you can say that's all not proven, I think it's proven, or you can say it's all not true, I think that just factually, by logic, it must be true, even if we hadn't any sources to back this up. We cannot reproduce these mass amounts of metronome marks given by composers basically from 1815, and that goes on until the early 20th century, I would say, in many cases. We just cannot reproduce that. And no, these metronome marks were no targets. They were accurate tempo indication. And no, that's not my opinion. That's a fact. If you just go on Google 5 minutes and you type in metronome marks 19th century, you will come across so many sources that talk about whatever aspect of the educational system in music, and all of them will have a page on the metronome, and all of them will say the metronome marks are accurate tempi. So we must be able to play them, to reproduce them. And no, the lighter actions of the pianoforte will not make it possible. It makes it more impossible. And stop even thinking that. It's not, I'm not telling you what to think or not to think, but my advice is to stop thinking that. I own 2 Viennese pianofortes, and I can guarantee you there's having no aftertouch, not having like this double escapement makes your life really hard, especially on a Viennese piano that's well regulated. You have to lift your entire finger almost from the key in order to have another sound. Good luck with that. Good luck playing all these repeated notes when you cannot lead into the key. Well, so the elephant in the room also in this video is, of course, that what we will hear, and I will have some quotes for you here. We will go through some fragments. That is that everything that you will hear is very true. And the credit that Barbara Lister actually deserves is obviously the fact that nobody talks about that. I mean, not nobody, because obviously we are going to watch like a lecture on TEDx that is evidently going about that. It's around that, but not many people are talking about that. And she's also pointing that out. But on the top of that, we will also see that the solution that Barbara Lister actually provides or want to implement is beyond description. And that's the point that I actually missed. And we're going to come back on that. And thirdly, and I cannot blame her for that, but that's why I make this video. I mean, I don't make these videos on people to just be personal and to be annoyed and to be a little bit like raising my voice sometimes, because yes, it freaks me out. It annoys me very much that the elephant in the room, the solution to prevent injuries is, of course, stop saying that all of that is in the name of the composer. And actually, Barbara Lister is mentioning the etchings of Chopin twice to enable them to play them without injuries. Well, there is only one solution for that. That's to slow down. And you can say like, no, the top pianists can do that. Well, if you see the statistics of this, and if you know a few people, just talk to a few people that you can talk to in confidence, behind the scenes, so to say, the image you get from this professional world is actually pretty devastating. And before we dive into the video, I made other videos on that where people actually, like on YouTube, influential people actually tell to their amateur audience, like, go ahead and practice also like us and suffer. Because that's what's going to happen. Like professional pianists, they at least monitor their body. I mean, they have to push the boundaries so much that they will damage their bodies. Every one of those. But amateur musicians, people that just go work and come home at 5 p.m. and just want to practice a little bit, that advice, even not warming up, just doing, will not only cause so many more damages to so many people, but also make so many people quit. And isn't that a pity? I mean, just being able to, after work, after your regular job, come home and just enjoy a little bit of piano playing. No, that's not possible in the classical music world, because there's an elite bubble that says like, hey, we have to practice so much, so you have to practice also that much. And why? Because we know that Chopin wanted you to do that because C is major marks. They don't say that, of course, but we assume that. That's like inclined in the message. And so there's no other option than to go and make videos and write blog posts. And even I'm thinking of writing a book after we publish the book, Fixing the Beethoven Mistake. That is in the end phase, guys. We made the contents of it, like chapter and A headings. And before you say like, oh, that's not done, that's the thing that you should do at the beginning. Of course, we did that at the beginning. But do you have ideas? There are new entrances, there are new visions, there are new perspectives. And so, last week I sat together. We had a meeting at my place with Arthur, who is the translator of and actually the co-researcher of the book. He's an unbelievable young guy. And so we now have, I think, 31 chapters. It will be amazing. But after that, I think I'm really playing with the idea of writing a book about exactly these topics, but without the elephant in the room. Of course, the WBMP, the impact, the research that we've done here are the symphonies of Beethoven, whole beats. So stop saying it musically don't work. It works unless you keep saying that we are all idiots. Well, then you also have to say that Alberto Sanna is an idiot. And if you see his track record, he was accepted in Los Angeles and Colburn. I don't think many of you watching right now, and I say like none of you would ever be close to even applying for a place in that elite conservatory. So yeah, if we all have bad taste and have like, okay, then we did something completely fake in which we didn't believe, and then that makes me into an idiot, which partly I am, I guess, because otherwise I wouldn't be doing what I was doing. But I love what I'm doing and I believe in what I'm doing, but I'm not an idiot in seeing the facts and also seeing the facts that we are going through together here. So we start where Barbara Lister will actually take you through the way pianists actually see their instruments, and it's already pretty devastating, and then she will take us through some statistics. So let's listen together.
But many pianists do not enjoy the same relationship. It becomes a foe or an enemy, an adversary. Over 50% on average of pianists in their lifetime, skilled pianists, will develop some sort of playing-related injury. What kind of injuries? It can start with simple fatigue. It can start with strain or a little bit of pain. Then it progresses to tendinitis or medial or lateral epicondylitis of the elbow nerves, or carpal tunnel syndrome, thoracic outlet syndrome, spinal compression, and perhaps even the king of injuries, which is focal dystonia, a neurological disorder that disables pianists from controlling their fingers. The statistics are actually appalling. They are staggering.
And then she goes on actually explaining this graph. I mean, we can quickly go over it. 26 to 93%, little progress made in reducing injury. Of course, these are studied 2005, 2010, and I would love to have more recent numbers. If you're listening or watching and you care about this, just send them to me. There's an email on my website. The link is in the description box. I really want to focus more on this because it's a direct, like I said, directly implication of it for playing too fast, and that's the elephant in the room. 2006, Japanese study, 77% of female pianists have injuries. I mean, are you kidding me? 77%. 2010, and I don't know what studies there are, but seeing her track record, I mean, I can assume also giving a TEDx talk that I don't have to track these down, and maybe it would even be possible. I would have to, I don't know, but let's assume these studies are correct. 2010, Australian study reports injuries in 72% of professional pianists. I mean, these are staggering numbers. And how long are we going to proceed? I would love to see evolution of this study, and I can almost know for sure that these numbers are going up. I mean, we made videos about this, right?
I can't play like this. I don't know what to do. My fingers are swollen and I can't really move them.
And I don't want to focus on Heart of the Keys of other people or not on Barbara Lister. I mean, for that reason. But I mean, we are not aware enough as a musical society, a musical community, that what we are heading for, what we are aiming for is something that doesn't exist. And aiming for is not even the word, that what we actually, all of us, and let's say that not the handful that we are here, we know the alternative truth. You know, that's not an alternative truth, by the way, in the sense of like, well, you are a conspiracy theorist. No, I'm not. It's just facts. And what I'm saying actually is this, like we as a musical society, or the musical society today doesn't realize, doesn't know apparently, that why they do all of this is, yeah, it's kind of a fake story in the name of the composer. When you are able, as we do, even without any sources, and yeah, I get it. There will be people now like, yeah, Wim, there are no sources back. Like I said before, there is no alternative. You have to consider at a certain moment facts are facts. You have to call fact a fact. Like when you cannot play a metronome mark, you cannot play a metronome mark. When you cannot play 100 metronome marks, that's already problematic. When we can give you thousands of metronome marks that you cannot play, that no one can play, that do not make any sense. And you have thousands of metronome marks, just the works of Karl Czerny. He composed almost 1,000 opus numbers, and many opus numbers consist out of multiple dozens of pieces. Basically, all of his metronomizations are problematic, if not impossible to play. So if you have all of that, there is no alternative. And then, yes, we can call it the WBMP a fact. Even if I were to be the biggest idiot of this planet, and I can handle it if you say I am, but that doesn't change any of the facts, then you have to say, we are chasing something, we, globally, for decades now, to push further, to compare ourselves with athletes, as we're going to do in a second, and for what reason? To reach the Beethoven tempi. Yeah, but there were not Beethoven tempi. We know that now. So can we put the elephant out of the room? Can we call that? And say, okay, doesn't make any sense. But I have more for you. We're now going to have a little bit of insight in her personal story, which there is a lot to say about. Let's listen first.
I was supposed to play a Beethoven concerto, the third concerto, with the Governor's School Symphony Orchestra, right here at Salem College. But one morning I woke up and my arm was on fire. My fingers would not move. I was terrified. I went to the piano and nothing happened. I couldn't get the keys down. My mother, always supportive and loving, found a doctor somewhere out in the county who gave me a shot of cortisone for what I assumed was tendonitis. I didn't know that then. But he gave me a shot of cortisone every day for 10 days. So that masked the pain, and somehow I got through the performance. It went pretty well, and I wore the beautiful dress that my mother had made for me. But from then on, I was haunted by the specter of injury. I went to college. I was in and out of the infirmary. I had splints. I had aspirin. I took cortisone shots. I was in the whirlpool constantly to try to get through the various recitals I played. And then finally, I went to Amsterdam to live after graduation and got incredibly lucky. It was dumb luck, though. Was incredibly lucky to meet a magnificent teacher who knew how to back me out of injury. It was laborious, it was painstaking, it took a great deal of time, but somehow she was able to get me to the point where I could actually play not only well, but virtuoso literature with a feeling of effortlessness. She was maximizing my neuromusculoskeletal system, you might say.
And here starts my criticism, for the simple reason that when you have to go to Amsterdam, a great place, by the way. I lived there 8 years. I did my study in Amsterdam. Many of you will know that. And then you come for an audience and say like, see, maximized, and I made a note, my neuromuscular skeleton system. I mean, Beethoven didn't think about his neuromuscular skeleton system. And I think if Chopin would have thought about his neuromuscular skeleton system, he would be afraid and very, very anxious, I think, because I don't know exactly what it means, kind of, but I don't think that that neuromuscular skeleton system in the case of Chopin was in great shape, right? But the criticism starts there for the simple reason that if you see so much going wrong in the pianistic world on all levels, she also talks about amateurs, young people, I mean, then cortisone, I mean, injections, that's like, and I would say if you were my daughter, you would never in a zillion years get those shots. Never. I would hit the doctor. I mean, I know it's useful in some cases, but not to get through that Beethoven concerto. I would ask the doctor, like, do you know that was always also necessary in 1820 or 1815? Because yeah, whatever. I mean, we can practice for months because we know the concert is in 5 years. But in Beethoven's time, finishing the last note, practicing for a week, and then up onto the stage, and then great applause. I mean, what are we talking about? But I get it. When everybody does that for 50 years, for 100 years, for hundreds of years maybe, but now these days, like skyrocketing, these I mean, it's unbelievable. The level of energy that goes into these, I would say, sports-like, but more than sports-like, practicing, that nobody sees that nobody sees the elephant in the room, and then everybody thinks like, okay, but you want to play Chopin, right? So that is what it takes. So let's maximize the output. And that is my criticism. So we now go to a next passage, and where she talks about the consequences of all of that. And that should actually be enough to say, okay, we just stop piano playing. We just not do it again anymore. Let's listen.
In fact, there are a number of terrible results. First, financially, they lose their jobs. They lose their scholarships. They lose their place in line in conservatories to study. They search, sometimes in vain, to get proper diagnosis and treatment. So they have high medical bills. And so even if they do get proper treatment, sometimes, a lot of the time, studies show the injury comes back because they don't know what caused it in the first place, which was where I was at, you might say. I didn't know what I'd done. I'd done everything right, I thought. And then secondly, professionally, they lose their credibility. If you can't play, you can't fulfill the duties for the gig. So they don't get asked back, oftentimes. It's too dicey to hire a pianist who's been injured.
By the way, for those of you who are not in this professional world, and I've never been there, but I'm close enough to know, the competition there is unbelievable. I heard a story, and that's the insane level pianists reach these days on a general scale. Like the times of the few happy few are long past, you know. You have so many pianists today that just can play tomorrow Rachmaninoff 3, and they have to. And I heard stories that these people are paid 500 euros or dollars for that sake. Just not only for the performance, but also all the expenses. And if you don't do it, there are 10 people waiting to take your place. Also, that is an aspect that we have to challenge. Where is the joy? If you can play Rachmaninoff 3, you can play anything. Where is the joy then? And then when they go on stage, she'll talk about that. Don't think even of playing a mistake. So if I can get it, when you are like not close to this world, you would think that I'm exaggerating. It's not a pretty world to be in, that's for sure.
So they hide. They hide the injury, play, and pain. Thirdly, personally, everyone wants to help. Teachers, parents, spouses, all of these people desperately want to help, usually, but they don't know how to help to reduce all of that pain. So personally, what happens is oftentimes these pianists become known as whiners, as hypochondriacs, as narcissists, and the worst I've found from my own study out of Columbia, they are considered mentally unstable by some. And then the worst for me is emotionally, what I saw in my own research study. You hear words from the participants in this study like devastated, despondent, clinically depressed, and even suicidal.
I mean, what is there to say? The whole room there was silent. Of course, it's very impressive. And I guess many of the people in that room just went in the evening to a concert where someone played these Chopin etudes. And they have these thoughts. I'm not saying everyone, but no one should have these thoughts. She's not on stage, by the way, to just make a case for a few people. Like, this lady did some real research. The next clip I want to show you, now we're going to get the confirmation of, okay, what can we do about this? And this, literally, what can we do about this? So the term this means to make the status quo even more acceptable. Because that's the whole point that I was missing. The solution of Barbara Lister is not, let's reconsider how we play music. Let's reconsider how far we can go technically in reaching these insane accomplishments. Let's reduce our ambition, even not touching upon the whole beat principles and all that. I cannot blame her for not knowing. And by the way, by the time that she made this lecture, we were not even, I was not even dealing. No, I mean, who would know that? And even today, we reach like how many people? 3,000 people per video. We have 50,000 subscribers, but not all the videos get watched by all the 50,000 subscribers. So we have a very small reach. I admit that. And so I cannot blame anyone for not knowing. But you could at least say, like, the problem is because of this. We have to reduce our ambition. And I will come back on that, but after this fragment, just listen, and then I will have a lot to say about this.
What sets the stage for this? Well, a lot of things. As the great physiologist Homer Smith quoted, perhaps in no other human activity do memory, complex integration, and muscular coordination surpass the achievements of the skilled pianist. We're the darlings of neuroscientists. They love to study us because we are combining not only this extraordinary physical skill and coordination, we have to know the emotional content of the piece, we have to know the theory behind it, the history, the style. All of those things, we have to integrate all of that, and we have to do it rhythmically right on the button. So it's thousands of little deadlines we have to hit. So it makes us a little perfectionist, you might say, a little obsessed with perfection. We cannot bat 450 and be considered successful. We cannot shoot 70 foul shots out of 100 and be successful. We have to bat 990. If we start missing notes, we don't get called back. We don't make the audition. And as in my case, years ago when I was in an international competition, I was booted out of the semifinals in Italy because I missed 4 notes in a Chopin ballade.
That's absolutely true. We have to hit the 990s. When you give a concert, you better play like a CD player. My criticism is in 2 ways. She actually acknowledges the point that we have to hit 990 out of 1,000, I guess. She acknowledges the point. Again, this what we have to reach here, out of the screen, here. That's what we have to do. And so we have to create a system to optimize our body like athletes in order to reach there, to come there. Like we are, what did she say? Like ideal study subjects for neuroscience. Does that make any sense? Does that make any sense? We need to be proud of that. That neuroscientific people, professors, whatever, doctors say like, oh, you're an interesting case. And I get it partly because we have to use all kinds of parts of our brain, although that seems not to be completely true from a medical standpoint. As I start to learn from my daughter, who studies psychology, if I didn't mention that, she passed all her exams this year. Unbelievable. So disciplined. I'm a little proud as a father. Can I say that? Even though I cut my finger, like I was happily doing that for her. Like, unbelievable. If your kids take off like that. We have another one. She is 12 and that's another age. If you're not having kids and you want to have second doubts, I can talk to you. No, just kidding. That's all phases of life. And you guess what? You learn from that. I would be a complete idiot if I didn't have a wife and 2 kids because they keep me with both feet on the ground. You have these people like me, you know? Okay, I guess the world needs them. But back to the subject. What she should have done, what Barbara Lister should have done here, and that's a severe point of criticism, is that she should have said, like, we don't need to reach the 990. We don't need to be kicked out when we play only 4 notes, because that not only destroys our body, that also makes us anxious, and that directly leads to thoughts of anxiety, depression, and even suicide. That's what she had to say. And she had to say also, like, hey, people of this elite bubble of the piano world that say, like, oh, we can do everything. I can play the Chopin etudes. While you cannot, because we are aiming for something that you cannot reach. And that's a proven point. And yes, you can play some etudes in single beat. But the Chopin etudes, guys, are just not the most difficult thing ever written. They are considered like that because it's one of the few etudes we still play from the 19th century. And if you speed them up so much, yeah, they become impossible. And so they got this like charisma of like impossible things. Like that's why you wake up at 5 a.m. in the morning, practicing on your digital piano with headphones, not to disturb your neighbors at that time. To practice, because yeah, they Chopin etudes. And from there, of course, follows the idea like, but the Chopin etudes are like, oh, over there. And so Chopin must have been an incredible pianist, right? No, yeah, he was, but not in that sense. Like Liszt wasn't. Liszt would not be a match for today's people. Not even close. We know that. It's not my opinion. I made videos about the fact that Maurice Rosenthal, his own student, said like, it was late in his life when I played Don Juan variations for him, he was astonished about my speed. But when he would come back in 1924, when he gave the interview, Liszt would not believe what he heard. 1924. That's 100 years ago. And then Rosenthal said the students of Liszt would have to practice 4 times more to be accepted in conservatories. In 1924, 4 times more to be accepted. So if you go back from 1924 to 1870 to 1840 when Liszt was at his peak, so somehow Liszt would be better than today. Technically, which means many more notes per second. So that's what you should have said. Like, guys, I don't give an F about what you want to achieve, but you cannot keep doing this. There is no solution for that. And by the way, if you talk to neuroscientists, I would love to talk to them and say, like, the question is not how to optimize our body. The question is, we want to play 20 notes a second. We want to play constantly 12 notes a second, 30 notes a second, and in many cases, 15 notes a second. And we want to do that. Give us tips and tricks. And they will stare at you and say, like, is that your question? Now the question here is asked, like, how can we optimize everything we do? Posture, like whatever. Of course you have to do that. But it's not the reason why it doesn't work. The reason why it doesn't work is that we want to compress so many impulses in such a limited time that we come to a zillion impulses per second. And this poor brain, which is the fastest computer on the globe, all of you have the fastest computers of the world. Everyone. We outperform computers by like that. It's like I'm fighting with my computer right now because sometimes my image is lagging. That don't happen in my head, you know, and it doesn't happen in yours either. So we possess the fastest brain, the fastest computer-like structure in the world. And yet it's not fast enough. And when you question to the neuroscientist would be like, I want to speed up. That's the thing. He would say like, are you out of your F mind? It's not good for your body, but you destroy your brain as well. But I have more for you. So we now go to a passage where pianists are really compared to athletes. And in a sense, it is true. I mean, when we sit at the piano, even we here with our super slow, easy, like every time you move a finger on a key, the activity that you give up impulse from your brain, a hand-eye coordination, it's super, super tricky. There are muscles and nerves that travel through your body. And so the moment your posture is not okay, you will end up like having pain here and here. But it won't destroy your body immediately unless you over practice and you do it over and over. Our body is actually super resistant. It's unbelievable. We recover from all of that unless you go beyond the boundary. So let's see what her solution is.
Athletes. Not only artists. We are artist athletes, just like the skater and the dancer. So as such, I believe we need to take this injury plague into a room full of experts in multidisciplines. I think we need to build a village. I think we need, as pianists, to also build a basic form. A basic form is a part of every single sport that you all play. You know what a golf swing looks like, what a tennis swing looks like. It's sort of the fundamental coordinations and sensations of getting the ball across the net, if you're trained well. I think we need a basic form for piano. And I think we'll need to call on our movement science colleagues in biomechanics, especially kinesiology, kinematics, kinetics. And also we need to call on the performing arts medicine research people to find out what our special risks are. We need to look at ergonomics. If you can find out how to sit well on the bench while you're at your computer station, surely we can teach how to sit on the bench here in the piano world.
Okay, multidisciplinary research, I get it. It's nice, it's interesting, but what does it solve? I mean, sitting on a bench, you learn that with every local music teacher, that you start with that. Straighten your back, heads up. You don't watch on your keys. Why? That's bad. Guess what all pianists are doing? Because not only we play from memory, and if you want to play from memory, nothing wrong with that. So some people are great in that, but it's not only that. We need to do that because we have to visually also monitor our motoric movements. We cannot make these jumps like you were taught in the 19th century. You didn't look on your hands. That's also something, a subject we never touched upon. You read that over and over again. You don't look at your fingers, not even with jumps. When you have time, you can do that. So we have to look on our hands, you know? Guess what? It's not good for your neck. So, a good posture. Why do you need this multidisciplinary research? And she goes on and says, like, we have to develop a plan. We have to develop from these multidisciplinary centers. There comes like a plan, like sports and athletes, where everything is described. And then to not only make it obligatory in conservatories, but also on the lower levels. Can you imagine the implication? But it goes further. Just a small fragment, which is also like, yeah, let's listen.
Sports pedagogy, dance pedagogy, those principles, neurobiologists could talk to us about the neurobiology of learning a complex motor skill, starting with the simplest coordination, like skating forward or playing one note on the piano.
I mean, what does that solve? When we would fill a room with neuroscientists, neurobiologists, and ask them, like, can you learn how we should play a note? I mean, everybody can do that. Every one of you who play the piano knows how to position a hand on a key. It's not so difficult. And every source, every piano source, every manual, every treatise in the 19th century, in the 18th century, but the 19th century, I mean, there are so many. 20th century, doesn't matter. With a few exceptions, we'll say your elbow a little higher, so there is one line to your fingers are relaxed on the key. That's so simple. The real question is, the real thing why we would need neurobiologists to in the room is because we want to do things that are not possible. We think they will become possible if we optimize everything. So as great as it is to call everybody out, like say, guys, this is happening, see the statistics. The criticism here that I have is like maybe outweighing that, because we here, Barbara Lister embraces that status quo as a fact. And now let's throw a bunch of scientists on the piano world to optimize what already has been proven to be impossible, and not only that, to cause major injuries. Are you thinking that the injuries are going to disappear by just sitting straight on your bench? You cannot even sit straight on your bench if you have to do these incredible things. You have to go over a certain boundary that will always hurt your body. And maybe not one time, but in order to come there, you have to practice so many times. 4,000 hours, he says in one time in the video, has already been practiced before someone goes to college. But I have more for you. One question I want to share with you. A question that she had for Michael Phelps. For those of you who don't know who he is, probably yes, but he's an Olympic swimmer, so one of the best swimmers ever. And just listen to what she would ask Michael Phelps, and I will come back on that, and you will immediately understand that we have to not only change course, we have to change direction. What she calls her position a paradigm shift. It's not. It's exactly the opposite of a paradigm shift. She embraces the current paradigm. Again, meaning we want to be here. The paradigm shift is like we abandon the idea of we abandon the idea of accomplishing what Poligny did with the Chopin etudes, which is on the scale of single beat. Like if we want to be here, it's only here, huh? We go back. We go back to this. But just listen to the question.
All that. These are all based on principles of biomechanics and what works to get the job done. What works for Michael Phelps to get as fast as he can down that lane.
What works for Michael Phelps to get as fast as he can through that lane? No, that's not the question you should ask him. You have to ask the question to Michael Phelps, not how to get as fast as possible through that lane, because that is what all these swimmers try. You have to ask, like, how can I do what you do, so optimize my body, and then have 15 strokes a second? Because that's what we want to do. Or 12, or even 10. And Michael Phelps will look at you and say, like, are you out of your mind? Who can do that? And those are the real questions. Those are the real questions that you also should ask to your neurobiologist, whatever doctor you have in the room, whatever scientist you have in the room. You don't have to say, like, you don't have to ask, like, how can we optimize everything? Because many musicians do that. Do you think that what pianists are accomplishing right now is because of bad posture? The people with bad posture, the people that don't know how to relax constantly, they will never, ever even come close to what the Polignys did. Never. So in a way, these top pianists, and we have many of those, they are super athletes. They do almost everything right. Just look at these pianists playing. They are sometimes beautiful just to watch. The fluently, whatever, with which they go over the keyboard, the easiness, it's unbelievable. They don't need how to learn to sit on a bench. Just go on YouTube and watch videos, even Lang, Yuja Wang, it doesn't matter. They are relaxed. They have a straight back. Because if they don't, they would be like in the hospital in 2 days and not even reaching those insane acrobatic, athletic, accomplishments. No. The question to Michael Phelps is, how can we even go further than that? When you ask these questions like that to all these scientists or sportsmen, they will just look at you like, can you repeat the question? Because these people don't know that either. They also go to concerts, and they also might enjoy classical music, or they also know, maybe not, but they say, okay, I guess you guys know what you're doing, right? No, we don't know what we are doing. We are reaching for this that doesn't exist. And they sometimes say, like, yeah, Wim, you are a flat earther. A conspiracy theorist. You know what a flat earther is? A dogmatic person. It's someone who believes. A dogma is a belief in something that you cannot prove. Well, if you believe in the single beat reading of these old metronome marks, you cannot prove that it exists because we cannot replicate that. Do I sound annoyed? Yeah, a little bit. Because the implication, guys, for so many is so... Can you imagine? Can you imagine just how many millions of people now today either quit playing the piano or another instrument, or just hate it, are unhappy because of this? And professionals and amateur likes of the same. I mean, it's all the same, right? We want just a little bit of happiness. And if you're a professional also, You, of course, are a higher standard. What's the difference between a professional and an amateur? Is, of course, I think a professional just can replicate the things that he learned, like with certainty. Many amateurs are almost equally as good as professional pianists, but may lack just the practice and the routine just to replicate all of that. But today, professionals seen like, how many notes can you play per second? How impressive can you be? And so for Barbara Lister to come out and say like, guys, this is a problem. Huge applause. Really, 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 we need more voices like that. But then to say like, yeah, there's nothing to do about it. You cannot play 4 notes a second. I'm not going to call out the piano world, right? Like, guys, are you out of your mind? 4 notes, what's that? Most of the people don't even hear it. But yet I'm kicked out of a competition. So the ones that are coming, yeah, I'm going to teach you how to optimize your body, that maybe you can do it. Well, the anxiety will stay. The feelings of depression will stay. The feelings of killing yourself. Can you imagine? With music. After playing this, Alberto and I didn't feel the need to kill ourselves, you know. We had a good glass of Belgian beer and had a good time afterwards. Many of these moments are still recalled till today. And listen, guys, I know some of you will say, and like, Wim, you're angry. You shouldn't. Yeah, no, I'm not angry. Actually, I'm worried. And it's only recently that I realized that the real power, or the real, can you say beneficial power? The real thing, I don't find the word, for our WBMP, of course, we reconstruct the metronome marks by Beethoven, we reconstruct the tempi of Chopin, of Schumann, of so many other composers. There are so many implications, not only for the composer that just gave that music to us, and now we are able to at least reconstruct one parameter and from there build. Yeah, there is also something for the composer there. There's also the enjoyment of music. But I also talk to people and they say that it's so hard for many people today to see the implication. Many people, if our book is published, I can guarantee you many people will just ignore it, like whatever. But the implication of our research is that what Barbara Lister says here, like, okay, but we have this expectation, Mr. Professor and multidisciplinary team, can you help us how to learn to sit on a bench? I mean, it'll sound a little sarcastic, I shouldn't. But I cannot help it. The implication of our research is that it takes away this. She now can go on stage and say, look, we know for a fact that we don't need to accomplish this. We don't need to reach this. If you want to destroy your bodies, it's your responsibility. I don't take responsibility for that. But until now, she had to do that because, yeah, whatever. That's Chopin wrote that, right? We have to be there, right? We have to play that Liszt etude in an insane tempo, right? No. But at the minimum, she could have said, like, even if it were true, it's not possible. It's not possible. Stop aiming for that. Open 2 doors in the conservatory. You enter one door, that's a self-destruct door, and yeah, you will maybe briefly learn to play like so many notes per second. Nowhere near what you need for this. 17 notes per second in the 8th Symphony. Last movement, good luck. 17. Just try to tap that on the table, 1 second. You get 1 second for 17 hits. That's the minimum she should have said, I think. But now, we should revive this and say, yeah, but there's no need to go there. Guys, again, a long video. Podcast, that's what we should have. And we're actually preparing that, but there is a lot going on. Finishing this week, the summary chapters of my notation course, that will be incredible. And also that will show you that the tempi of these composers were much closer to what is a normal middle tempo, like the tempo ordinario, 1 quarter note, 1 second. Suddenly when the metronome was invented, all of that, like from the 31st of December 1813, we still had the old tempo ordinario, 1 quarter note equals 1 second tempo. And then from the 1st of January 1815, when the metronome was introduced, all of these tempi doubled. I mean, there are so many entrances and this notation course will just make that. But that notation course will also enable you, when you open another score, music from Bach till late 19th century, to read that and to have like a right assessments of tempo. You will learn how to listen to an allegretto, what that character really is, because there is something in the character of the movement as well. And going through the symphonies, it will be like 20, 25 hours course with shortcuts. That's incredible. That will be part of the full Beethoven experience, by the way, where you also get this 10 CD box, but then also the course, also 25 hours of podcast that Alberto and I recorded a listening guide to these symphonies. But these courses will also be standalone if you want. And we're going to develop an ecosystem around that. It's so cool to do all of that. And so, yeah, there's so much to do. So the podcast will have to wait maybe. But as you can tell, I like talking to you, because without you, this channel would not even exist. So, and also should mention my patrons, because they make it possible for me to hear. It's now a Friday afternoon, I'm recording a video for you, and all of that is possible thanks to Patreon. We're going to update that because we need to change some things. Patreon changed their infrastructure and also their subscription model, so that will be all for the coming weeks, I guess, because it's rather urgent. But even if you're just here to watch the videos, I love you all. Thank you for being here. That's all I've got for you today. Thank you for watching. We see each other very soon again. Bye.